a Wikividi Documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. Jewel, singer. Jewel Kilcher, known mononymously as Jewel, is an American singer-songwriter, musician, producer, actress, author, and poet. She has received 4 Grammy Award nominations and, as of 2008, has sold over 30 million albums worldwide. Kilcher was raised in Homer, Alaska, where she grew up singing and yodeling as a duo with her father, a local musician. At age 15, she received a partial scholarship at the Interlochen Arts Academy in Michigan, where she studied operatic voice. After graduating, Kilcher began writing and performing at clubs and coffee houses in San Diego, California. Based on local media attention, she was offered a recording contract with Atlantic Records, who released her debut album, Pieces of You, in 1995. It went on to become one of the best-selling debut albums of all time, going 12 times platinum. The debut single from the album, Who Will Save Your Soul, peaked at number 11 on the Billboard Hot 100. 2 others, You Were Meant for Me and Foolish Games, reached number 2 on the Hot 100 and were listed on Billboard's 1997 year-end singles chart, as well as Billboard's 1998 year-end singles chart. Her subsequent album, Spirit, was released in 1998, followed by This Way. In 2003, she released 0304, which marked a departure from her previous folk-oriented records, featuring electronic arrangements and elements of dance pop. In 2008, she released Perfectly Clear, her first country album. It debuted atop Billboard's Top Country Albums chart and featured 3 singles: Stronger Woman, I Do, and Till It Feels Like Cheating. Jewel released her first independent album, Lullaby, in 2009. Jewel has also had endeavors in writing and acting. In 1998 she released a collection of poetry, and the following year appeared in a supporting role in Ang Lee's Western film Ride with the Devil, which earned her critical acclaim. Early life. Jewel was born May 23, 1974 in Payson, Utah, the second child of Attila Kuno, Atz Kilcher, and Leonida Jewel Kilcher. At the time of her birth, her parents had been living in Utah with her elder brother, Shane. Her father was attending Brigham Young University. She is a first cousin once removed of actress Kaori Anka Kilcher. Her father, originally from Alaska, was a Mormon, though the family stopped attending the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints after her parents' divorce when she was 8 years old. Her paternal grandfather, Yul Kilcher, was a delegate to the Alaska Constitutional Convention and a state senator of German descent who settled in Alaska after emigrating from Switzerland. He was also the first recorded person to cross the Harding Icefield. Shortly after her birth, the family relocated to Anchorage, Alaska, settling on the Kilcher family's 770-acre homestead. There, her younger brother, Atz Jr. was born. She also has a half-brother, Nikos, who was primarily raised in Oregon by his mother, with whom her father had a brief relationship. She would later become close to him in adulthood. After her parents' divorce in 1981, Kilcher lived with her father in Homer, Alaska. The house she grew up in lacked indoor plumbing and had only a simple outhouse. The Kilcher family is featured on the Discovery Channel show Alaska: The Last Frontier, which chronicles their day-to-day struggles living in the Alaskan wilderness. Recalling her upbringing, she said, Kilcher and her father sometimes earned a living by performing music in roadhouses and taverns as a father-daughter duo. They also often sang at hotels in Anchorage, including the Hotel Captain Cook and the Hilton Anchorage. It was during this time that Kilcher learned yodel from her father. She would later credit the time she spent in bars as integral to her formative years. I saw women who would compromise themselves for compliments, for flattery, or men who would run away from themselves by drinking until they ultimately killed themselves. At age 15, while working at a dance studio in Anchorage, she was referred by the studio instructor to Interlochen Arts Academy in Interlochen, Michigan, where she applied and received a partial scholarship to study operatic voice. Local businesses in her hometown of Homer donated items for auction to help allocate additional funds, and raised a total of $11,000 to pay the remainder of her first year's tuition. She subsequently relocated to Michigan to attend Interlochen, where she received classical training and also learned to play guitar. She began writing songs on guitar at age 16. While in school, she would often perform live in coffee houses. After graduating, she relocated to San Diego, California, where she worked in a coffee shop and as a phone operator at a computer warehouse. 1993-1997, Beginnings and Pieces of You. For a time, Kilcher lived in her car while traveling around the country doing street performances and small gigs, mainly in Southern California. She gained recognition by singing at the Interchange Cafe and Java Joe's in San Diego. She would later make her debut record at Java Joe's when it was in Poway, where she had worked as a barista. Her friend Steve Poltz's band, the Rugburns, played the same venues. She later collaborated with Poltz on some of her songs, including You Were Meant for Me. The Rugburns opened for Jewel on her Tiny Lights tour in 1997. Poltz appeared in Jewel's band on the Spirit World Tour 1999 playing guitar. Kilcher was discovered by Inga Weinstein in August 1993, when John Hogan, lead singer from the local San Diego band Rust, whom Weinstein was managing, called to tell her about a girl surfer who sang at a local coffee shop on Thursdays. Weinstein drove to the Interchange with a representative from Atlantic Records, and after the show they called Danny Goldberg, the head of Atlantic Records' West Coast operations, and asked him to pay for her demo, since, at the time she was living in a van and lacked the means to record any of her own music. Weinstein, who at the time was working as a film executive at Paramount, eventually became her manager and was instrumental in creating a major bidding war that led to her deal with Atlantic Records. She continued to manage Jewel until the end of the first album cycle. Her debut album Pieces of You was released the eponym of Jewel, in 1995, when she was 21 years old. Recorded in a studio on singer Neil Young's ranch, it included Young's backing band, the Stray Gators, who played on his Harvest and Harvest Moon albums. Part of the album was recorded live at the Interchange Cafe in San Diego, where she had risen to local fame. The album stayed on the Billboard 200 for 2 years, reaching number 4 at its peak. The album spawned the top 10 hits, You Were Meant for Me, Who Will Save Your Soul, and Foolish Games. The album eventually sold over 12 million copies in the United States alone. In the late 1990s, Mike Connell created an electronic mailing list for fans, known as Everyday Angels. Although Jewel herself does not subscribe to this mailing list, she maintained communication with her EA fans. On July 18 and 19, 1996, she gave a 2-day concert known as Jewel Stock at the Bearsville Theater. Jewel allowed the concert to be taped, and fans circulated the concert without profit. 1998-2002, Spirit and This Way. Jewel was chosen to sing the American national anthem at the opening of the Super Bowl 32 in January 1998 in San Diego. She was introduced as San Diego's own Jewel, but criticized for lip-syncing the anthem to a digitally recorded track of her own voice. This was especially noticeable due to her missing her cue and not mouthing the first words. Super Bowl producers have since admitted that they attempt to have all performers pre-record their vocals. She performed the Star-Spangled Banner again in the 2003 NBA Finals in one of the New Jersey Nets home games. From her second album, Spirit, the song Hands hit number 6 on the Hot 100. Other singles followed, including a new version of Jupiter, What's Simple Is True, and the charity single Life Uncommon. A year later, in November 1999, Jewel released Joy, a holiday collection. The album sold over 1 million copies and peaked at number 32 on the Billboard 200. She released a cover of Joy to the World from the album as a single. In November 2001, the album This Way was released. The album peaked at number 9 on the Billboard 200 and sold over 1.5 million copies in the US. A song from the album, Standing Still, hit the top 30. Other singles released were Break Me, This Way, and Serve the Ego, the latter giving Jewel her first number 1 club hit. 2003, 2007, 0304 and Goodbye Alice in Wonderland. In 2003, Jewel released the album 0304. Following the limited success of Serve the Ego, Jewel moved to a more pop-oriented sound with the release of the single Intuition. The song reached number 5 on the Billboard Adult Pop Songs chart and number 20 on the Billboard Hot 100. On May 2, 2006, Jewel released her 6th album Goodbye Alice in Wonderland. The album received mixed reviews, but still managed to debut at number 8 on the Billboard Albums chart and sold 82,000 copies in its first week. The lead single, Again and Again, had success on Adult Top 40 radio, peaking at number 16. The second single, Good Day, was released to radio in late June and peaked at number 30 on the Adult Pop Songs charts. A video for Stephenville, Texas, her next single, was seen on Yahoo! Launch. After a photo shoot at her Texas ranch, Jewel spontaneously decided to have photographer Kurt Marcus shoot the music video for the song, Goodbye Alice in Wonderland. According to an Atlantic Records press release, the homegrown clip beautifully reflects both the song's organic, intimate sound and its powerfully autobiographical story. CMT music critic Timothy Duggan praised the album. This album showcases Jewel's unique talent as a lyricist, alongside a definite growth in her musicianship. It is what pieces of you might have been had Jewel had the musical knowledge then that she has now. A very satisfying work, all in all. Rolling Stone, however, called the album overdone and undercooked, with a rating of 2 stars out of 5. 2007, 2008, Label Shift and Perfectly Clear. Jewel released a video for Quest for Love, the lead single from the movie Arthur and the Invisibles, recorded in 2006. The song is only available on the soundtrack for the film, which was released in January 2007. In early February 2007, Jewel recorded a duet with Jason Michael Carroll, No Good and Goodbye, that was featured on Carroll's debut CD, Waitin' in the Country. She also made a promotional appearance on the T in Boston for the Verizon Yellow Pages, playing songs on a moving subway car, and then doing an hour-long acoustic concert in South Station. In a 2007 interview with the Boston Globe, Jewel stated that she was no longer affiliated with the record label, confirming rumors that Atlantic Records had failed to renew her contract after the lackluster sales of her then latest album. She also hinted that she would like to do a country album next. She worked with John Rich of Big and Rich fame, who said that she was probably one of the greatest American singer-songwriters we have had. He also said that every label in Nashville was talking to her at the time. In November 2007, Jewel was signed to Valerie Records, a newly formed division of the independent Big Machine Records label. Her first country album, Perfectly Clear, was released on June 3, 2008, selling 48,000 units in its first week. It debuted at number 1 on the Billboard Country Album chart and number 8 on the Billboard 200 album chart. In its second week on the charts, the album dropped to number 25 on the Billboard 200 and number 5 on the Country Albums chart, with estimated second-week sales of 75,000 units. Its lead single, Stronger Woman, was released to country radio on January 17, 2008, and entered the top 20 on the Billboard Hot Country Songs charts. On the April 26, 2008 country charts, it peaked at number 13. The next single, I Do, was released to radio on June 23, 2008. The video for the single featured her cowboy then-husband, Ty Murray. This song peaked at number 28. Following it was Till It Feels Like Cheating, which peaked at number 57. Perfectly Clear was released in Australia in late May 2009. It was then released across Europe by Humphead Records in June 2009. Brought to you by Wikividi Documentaries. Would you like to know more?